Where's the switch? Oh. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
not wrong outlet.
Did I unplug this electrical device?
Can you please fix
Please.
the sign? Should we get another power?
Oh, here we go.
Mr. Vic, do you know what you're doing?
Of course I do.
I think you need to be hunter. You need to hunt the plug.
Hunt the trust instinct. And let there be light.
You can't really see
You can't
it.
see it.
Yeah, let's see. No.
It's fine. It's fine. We know it's there.
Yes.
Oh ho ho!
Oh ho ho! Merry Christmas!
Merry
Merry
Kravemus!
Christmas! Merry Craven!
Kravemus! Merry Kraven! So that's that sign you can't see, but it says on air, and
It's
we're
really cool looking.
which is what we are on.
Yes,
air.
we are on air.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm wearing the same hoodie I wore last time because there's a tiger on it, and Kraven eats tigers for breakfast.
You are tiger. You are tiger.
I am leg beast.
You're if you're not prey, you are predator.
I am savage beast, ready to talk cinema.
Okay, welcome to episode 26 of the Mom and Eric podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go 26.
26. Yeah, that's impressive. It is just past Christmas. And Eric and I are fresh off of watching some movies together.
Yeah.
Actually, we're going to talk about the movies we watched together, but the movie that we most recently saw, you look really weird with it crunched down
like this.
Okay. The movie we most recently saw was Kraven. Is it Kraven the Hunter?
Kraven the Hunter.
Kraven the Hunter, yes.
He hunts.
Yes, he hunts.
When the man comes around. That I just rewatched the trailer. That was the song that they used.
Okay.
Pretty cool.
So for those of you who are not familiar with the Sony Marvel experiment, Sony had the license for some of Marvel's characters. In particular, they had the license for Spider-Man. And all kinds of negotiations had to happen in order for Marvel Studios to borrow Spider-Man for the Avengers universe. So Sony made the other. So Sony produced the other movies, though, right? The Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield ones.
Andrew Garfield, yeah. I don't
Yes.
remember.
Tobey
I guess
Maguire.
I guess Tobey Maguire was also.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so Sony, as a movie studio, owned some of these Marvel rights, and so for the past several years, they've been trying to build out their own Marvel universe, which has had some really big successes, like Sony Animation and Into the Spider-Verse, which is one of our favorite movies, right? And then but then they veered off in a really odd anti-hero direction. And it's not even actually that it didn't work. I think they're called the Sinister Six, by the way. But it's basically, I think, trying to show a morally conflicted revisionist history of some of Marvel's biggest villains. Give them a bit of a backstory, I guess. So anyway,
And Madam Web.
And Madam Web, that's right. I keep on forgetting about Madam Web. It just keeps up.
Who's a hero?
Yeah. So
Aaron. Sorry.
Right. So it's Madam Web, the Venom movies in particular, the trilogy of Venom movies starring Tom Hardy. Is it Mobius?
Morbius, which I didn't see.
Starring Jared Leto.
Yeah.
And then now Kraven the Hunter starring Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is rumored to be the next to be the front runner for the next James Bond. Although in my opinion, he looks too buff to be James Bond.
Yeah.
So anyway, Aaron Taylor Johnson. So this was originally supposed to be the focus of this podcast episode, and we may still focus on it because I do want to talk about the movie, having just seen it like half an hour ago. So I do want to talk about Kraven the Hunter, but in addition, we might mention a couple of the other movies that we saw as well over this holiday period. Anyway,
also, did you mention that Kraven is the last Sony Marvel venture that they're doing? So after this, they're not making any more.
Has that been confirmed?
Well, my favorite movie guy on TikTok said so. So. But that's what he said that this is the last one that they're doing, and they can't do any more because I don't know. Do they make money? I don't think so. I think they're losing a lot.
Well,
So
Venom made a lot of money.
yeah,
And they
but
do have their passionate little fandom. So
yeah.
if they
Oh, there's
can,
gonna be the new Venom.
is there? No, there was a new Venom just now. Remember the horse turned into
Oh, did
Venom?
that come out
Yeah,
already?
that came
That came out already.
out.
Well, then Kraven is the very last one.
Yeah. I think that there's a way that they're going to resurrect themselves like the zombie. There's every possibility, I think, that Kraven and Venom, those are the two. I think both of them could end up developing cult status, cult favorite status, so that
Yeah.
people keep it going. Like Zack Snyder's
Well,
DC, for example, who I think Zack Snyder's most of his movies suck, but I think that there's a way that his movies will keep on coming back to life.
sure.
Okay. So Kraven, the Hunter, stars Aaron Taylor Johnson as Kraven, the Hunter, and he's the son of a Russian gangster. And he leaves and he becomes Kraven the Hunter. And so I just want to be clear from the outset before we get into what we thought of the movie that Eric and I both expected that this movie would be not good. And not only did we not think it was going to be, I think we were wondering whether or not it was going to be entertainingly not good or just plain not good? So I guess I should start off with that question. First of all, Eric, do you think it turned out to be entertainingly not good or just not good?
I was laughing or trying not to laugh the entire time. So
He was
there
laughing the
was not
entire
a
time.
there was not a moment.
Like I looked over and he was like,
There were definitely moments where I figured, okay, this is going on too long. But there were I was just I couldn't I wasn't I was trying very hard not to ruin people's experience in the theater. But as soon as everybody was laughing, because at a certain point, everybody just you just couldn't defend what was happening. As soon as Rhino did that thing where he was holding the table and he went like everybody just kind of, unraveled. So,
yeah,
but it was hilariously bad. I had heard that it was entertainingly terrible and it just lived up to that expectation for me.
yes,
Um, but not to say that the uh the quality of the movie didn't also depress me a little bit, because it was terrible. And it was terribly written.
it was terribly written.
And uh,
Like the worst script you could possibly
yeah,
imagine.
and it still perpetuates a lot of the problems we see with, superhero movies nowadays, anti-hero movies nowadays, but also just movies in general, their over reliance on CGI and big name actors, all this stuff. Like
Yes,
it still perpetuates all that, but
yes.
just in a way that was hilarious and stupid.
Yes, it was a terrible, it's in no way was it a good movie. Although I will say that there was one thing that was good about it, actually.
Okay, go. Yeah,
Well,
what?
the one thing that was good about it is that I was rereading Sarah's review, and she said that, the director J.C. Chandon made it look really good, and I actually think the movie did look really good. Aside from the horrible CGI, I thought that the movie was actually quite visual.
Yeah, sure.
And so it was quite aesthetically, it didn't look cheap, it didn't look badly lit.
Yeah.
It actually, all the shots were beautifully framed, all the landscape scenes especially were beautifully framed. So, and I actually, and also I have to say the action sequences were very well paced.
Yeah,
They were really well done.
I, you know, I don't even, I don't know how self-aware these movies are,
Mm,
especially this one because it was just so stupid
it was so stupid.
and Aaron Taylor Johnson running through the city or through the forest or wherever he was running, I feel like all these movies kind of copy off of, Tom Cruise's whole presence.
Yeah.
But they do it in a way that's just so fun to watch.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
and I actually enjoyed Aaron Taylor Johnson a lot. As ridiculous as he was,
He was ridiculous.
but he definitely had a great screen presence and made those action scenes really exciting.
Yeah, he
And
was
all
great in the action. He
yeah,
really was great in the action.
because especially, growing up, I I loved animals as a kid.
Hmm.
I made a lot of ridiculous imaginary fights with animals and Jungle Fury Power Rangers was my thing, using the spirit of an
Yeah.
animal and they take that ridiculous sort of silly element and use it in a way that's really funny. He's in the snowstorm and he just sees a wolf and he just goes and the and the wolf goes, and then walks away. And same with the lion. When he meets the lion, These animals have a, I don't know how he, like, just animals follow him for some reason because of this weird serum, I guess he took. But and then
No,
it,
I think he
it,
had a natural bond with animals. And
yeah,
then the serum enhanced that and his strength.
yeah,
And also the lion's blood.
yeah, and
Remember,
as
he was given his superpower in a what I would call a multiple method
yeah,
multiple method approach.
yeah, and as silly as that
Secret
is,
potion, lion DNA,
yeah,
and then natural bond.
yeah, it's just so fun. The only thing he didn't do that would have aided to that whole presence was if he, made animal calls. If he if he like howled at one point, that would just kind of seal the deal for this
Yeah.
movie.
Aaron, Aaron Taylor Johnson, by the way, I don't know if I think that he's a good actor. Like I now have seen him in a bunch of things and cannot remember a single thing about his performance in most of the actors.
Yeah,
So what stands out to me always about him in movies and also in pop culture in general is that I do think he's quite attractive. I
yeah.
do. I think he's very attractive. He's very muscular and he's muscular in a way that looks he should be muscular. So when Henry Cavill is muscular, it looks like Henry Cavill has bulked up to a ridiculous point, and then he's not really at ease in his body. But I actually think that Aaron Taylor Johnson does look like he's at ease in his body. The one pet peeve I have is that he is British by nationality, and all these British actors, when they play Americans, they go way too far in the American accent where they make us all sound like, you know what I mean?
I don't
Like
know why he had an American accent. I thought he was supposed to
they
be
were raised
Russian.
in New York, though.
Yeah, but why? I
They
don't
were
know.
they were they went to a prep school that he and his younger brother that will provide the transition to
Guys,
another.
you have to understand they went to a prep school. They
They
went to
went to
New
a prep
York
school in
and
upstate New
and then
York.
their mom died. And
Right.
we found out by them going in a car and Russell Crowe going, "Your mother
Mm.
is dead."
Your mother did.
Yeah, she was too weak.
Yes. Yeah. By the way, this cast was utterly stacked, and it was stacked. So it had Alessandro Nivola, it had Russell Crowe, a two-time Academy Award Best Actor winner. And
He's
then,
won 2 times
yes,
for Gladiator and for what?
I think A Beautiful Mind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Um, and then so that he had or maybe it was a Cinderella Man. You should look it up. But anyway, he's definitely a two-time actor winner.
Yeah,
He's an acting god. He's the only reason why the first Gladiator was as well received as it is because
yeah,
he held the center with his gravitas. So in this movie, he really had this uncomfortable, he was definitely committed to the part. He was
yeah,
definitely committed to the part of being the evil papa gangster. And he didn't give a bad performance, but I felt like I could see behind his eyes him thinking, was this paycheck worth it? You know what? I just need the money. I'll just take the paycheck and go. Like I definitely felt him thinking, I'm gonna give my all because I'm a professional, but I'm not quite sure this is worth the dent. Maybe he's Teflon and his career will be fine. It seems to be fine. His career seems to be fine.
mm,
Anywho, um, so I mean, I too thought that the movie was hilarious in parts. I too had moments where I was like, oh no, this is just bad. This is just plain bad. So I would just say there was a lot actually I quite liked about the movie. So I liked the visuals. I liked the action sequences. And I thought that when people were when all the elements were coming together, then there were scenes where the movie worked. So the scenes where like, Rhino is trying to take over and he's sort of maneuvering all these chess pieces, I actually felt like the movie was working. But really that this is all damning with faint praise. The movie was terrible. So there were things I enjoyed about the movie and but the things that were really, really hard to sit through were any dialogue scenes, any like scenes that were supposed to have any emotional importance, you
yeah,
know? And it actually made me think about like there are so many people who would argue that superhero movies or comic book movies they would argue that they're so superficial and shallow. And yet I myself have felt really genuine emotion in some of the Marvel movies that I've seen. I mean, and then also some of the like I've felt genuine emotion in the Spider-Man movies. And I have felt genuine, I mean, Endgame might be one of my top five movies of all time. And I wonder about the challenge of pulling off a comic book movie that's also good. Um, I actually think that it might be a higher degree of difficulty when you have to manage all the action, you have to manage all the CGI and all the special effects. You have to manage all the character development. You have to like live with that arc of the origin story, versus the what happens later on and the different phases of a universe. I actually think it's a really hard thing to pull off. Craven by no means pulled it off, but it made you aware. I think it made me aware of the movies that have pulled it off
Yeah.
really well. Like I think that some of the Spider-Man movies are really great.
Yeah.
I think some of the Batman movies are really great. Yeah, and I actually love the first Superman, that from Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters that the plot was entirely riddled with cliches because all plots have cliches in them. I actually think that you could have, with a better script, you actually could have, done more with this concept.
Yeah.
So I think they could have succeeded.
At the,
And oh, by the way, I want to make because Tom Hardy is so committed to his role as Eddie in Venom movies that sometimes those movies work.
mhm.
And you can actually see because he's so frustrated at the idea of living with this symbiote,
Yeah.
symbiote and trying to prevent him from eating people.
Yeah.
And so you can feel Tom Hardy's like commitment to the part, and
Mhm.
so that's why I think that sometimes these movies could work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
this one did not.
I think, I mean, at the very least, this was not, Craven was not Madam Web.
I haven't seen that.
Madam Web had zero semblance of a story.
Yeah.
And also, you know, some of the parts that they advertised were kind of actiony and related to superhero stuff were not in the movie for any of it until the very end
Right.
where they teased like, oh, we're gonna have that actiony cool bits in the next one. At the very least, Craven had some really awesome spectacle
Yes, it did have some
and
spectacle.
like just some of the simplest things to understand, like his care for his brother is pretty easy to
Yes.
understand. And
Yeah.
also, so that scene when he's chasing after the car, that's was probably my favorite of the movie because it was just fucking sick. He was
Yeah.
running after this car and just like not stopping. And then I also like the open too. Like
Yeah, me too.
he went to, a Russian prison and you don't know why he's there, but he just clearly he just looks like a Giga Chad, just like walking in like, oh, nobody knows why.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm in this prison, which is dope. But and fun to watch. So
yeah.
at the very
Prisoner 03,
yeah,
086 or something.
there are these things that are just so simple and easy to latch onto. And the writing uh was the most stereotypical and the most just things you've heard a million times over.
I,
Just
I actually think the
ham
script sounded like it came from AI.
yeah, hammered
I
yeah,
really think
hammered
that
it was hammered
I
home.
think
Like
ChatGPT wrote that script.
yeah, it's like AI wrote it and they picked the best option, like line options, that sounded like they would work for a trailer,
Right.
and
Right, right, right.
because all of them were just, you're a hunter. The hunt,
You
he
must seek your path.
he
Our
does
path
not
is on
stop.
the
He has a list. You do not come off the list.
once you're on the list, you do not
Which, by
come
the
off.
way, is I reminded me of Arrow, the show, who because he had a list and he would kill criminals and stuff. It's something that it does share with Madam Web though, which is funny. It's just a weird, really weird thing to have just in a finished product
Yeah.
is terrible dubbing, terrible ADR and dubbing, which is crazy because
Yeah.
you would think like the amount of money they have to spend on this stuff. I guess they're spending it all on VFX and the actors' budget. But you would think that they make sure that they can record the lines or record them well.
Yeah.
But so many times they had to cut to wide shots. They had to cut to like where you can't see their mouths
Yeah.
because so they could just insert some line like, oh, the audience is not going to understand what's happening. So, uh, you know, oh, you need to go ask your father what. It's like the
Yeah,
last
yeah,
line
yeah, yeah.
like his brother says. He says, "Go home," and then he leaves, and he's like, "Father left you something,"
I know, I know,
Like
I know, I know.
you didn't see him say that
Yeah,
because
the
it's
exposition was particularly
yeah,
clunky. It was clunky in all of them.
yeah. So
I need more of this potion. It
yeah,
saved my life.
yeah, but also things just don't match their mouths. Like
Yeah,
it was really really bad in Madam Web, but it's also noticeable in this one,
interesting. I
and
didn't notice it.
it just
So, yeah,
even if it's not conscious, the way you listen to the dialogue and kind of experience the movie, it gives off the unintentional and ridiculous, not serious attitude to trying to actually draw meaning from that stuff because now it's just we're just not going to care if
Yeah.
they don't care enough to give it time and energy to. I know I'm explaining. This is what good movies do, but that's just the truth.
No,
So
I know all bad movies have the potential to be good movies, right? They could you could in fact you can usually see how they could have been salvaged.
yeah,
I will say though that interestingly enough, I don't know if it had something to do with my expectations or whatever, but I kind of enjoyed the experience. It was not torture to watch it. It was not
no, I don't
torture to
think
watch
so.
Kraven,
Yeah,
and that's high praise given how bad it is.
yeah,
I will say though, in terms of it not being torture, there was one point where I was wondering there was action sequence after action sequence, and in between there was painfully stilted dialogue.
yeah.
Like, but the in
Yeah.
between, in the moments where you should have been developing character, they had the painful dialogue between two characters, random two characters, and they were really awful. And the people in the scenes, in the dialogue scenes, especially Ariana DeBose, who I assume was better in West Side Story, but she was terrible here, like really terrible. And anyway, she was terrible. Um,
She also, well, I mean, I don't, on top of the dubbing issues or just the line insertion issues, and then also the writing issues, I think, I mean, she just wasn't given a character at all. She was a
no,
lawyer.
but what character she was given, she was not in the
I
least
guess
bit
so.
convincing.
Yeah. But also, okay, sorry.
She to me plays the same character. I don't mean to link them by their ethnicity, but Michelle Rodriguez, she played the pilot in Avatar. Do you remember the helicopter pilot in the first Avatar?
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, she's also been in the Fast Five movies too,
Uh-huh.
the Fast and Furious
Yeah.
franchise. She inhabits that sort of tough girl cool
Yeah.
much more effortlessly than Ariana does to me. Ariana looked like stilted and awkward and nervous when
Oh, yeah, I know what you're
she's
talking about.
supposed to be sort of this polished, tough lawyer, and then she's supposed to transition into whatever we don't know, right?
Superhero that
So
was
right, yeah, yeah.
not
That
explained
was not
or
explained, right? But
anything.
I thought she was really terrible in her scenes, and I'm sure she deserved her Best Supporting Actress nomination, but I don't think that she did a good job
Oh,
at all.
I thought you were saying like I know she deserves a best supporting actress for this movie,
No,
but
no, no, for West Side Story. She was in West.
oh, okay,
I think she
yeah,
got it. It was either West Side Story
she
or In the
got it, yeah,
Heights.
yeah, or In the Heights, I don't know.
I don't remember which one
Also,
was.
by the way, Russell only won one
Oh,
Oscar,
really?
but he was nominated for two others
Oh, okay.
for
I
best
think he
actor.
won. I thought he won for both Gladiator and A Beautiful
He
Mind.
won for just Gladiator. So one more thing, just again, just the CGI. Oh, it's a point that we've talked about so many times. I don't need to, explain it again. But just so much CGI that has to fill in all this stuff. But I also noticed randomly in the dialogue scenes with Ariana, her something they were doing something with her head. Did you notice that at all?
No,
There was something going on. I don't know if it was some sort of makeup pass that just was like or beauty pass, what they call it, that just was not done well. But I was just noticing something was vibrating around her face when she would talk
oh,
to
weird.
Aaron Taylor Johnson. Um,
Maybe that's her secret
yeah,
superpower.
or I don't know if they were if those weren't filmed, then she was just that's an AI, deepfake thing. You know, that's the kind of stuff I have to question now. I'm just sensing that a lot of these issues of how bad it is come in pre-production because they know they're gonna have to spend so much fixing things and doing visual effects that they do the age old, oh, we'll just fix it in post, which is not how you make good
Good
movies.
movies.
Yeah,
That's right.
it's just so sad. I think it's because it's getting so easy to fix things, but um, and it's fixing things so that people will come to the theater and watch it just enough to maybe, make up for your losses on the movie. But I don't know why they don't invest more in pre-production to just make good movies, and then
Yeah.
people will also come to the theater,
Yeah. I mean, if you go into it, you know that these movies are going to be super expensive, like big budgets,
Yeah,
because of all the special effects and action sequences.
yeah,
So you might as well, if you're going to invest that much money, like why not make it good?
yeah.
This is, by the way,
Because it's less of
and
a headache too,
no, I know I made this point before, but the whole Godzilla minus one,
Yeah.
which we saw earlier this year, and they did we do it? We didn't do an episode on
No,
that, right?
no.
But anyway, we saw Godzilla minus one, and I really freaking love that movie. And I could not believe when I found out what budget it was
Yeah.
because that movie looked amazing and the monster looked amazing. And so they were just so incredibly tight and the quality control was so tight. And I know that Craven cost over $200 million and it's suffering because it's not going to make back or it might, I think it will do okay, actually. I think it will do fine. There were a surprising
Streaming.
number of people in the theater. We went to see a
Yeah,
9:30
actually.
a.m. screening
Yeah.
because that was the only time we could find, and there was a surprising number of people
I
in the
was
theater.
shocked to see there was like
Yeah.
10 people in that theater,
Yes.
at least.
At
Yeah.
least, maybe more.
Yeah.
So then I actually think that Craven might be finding his legs. And I actually don't think that I think if you go into it with the right expectations, like you don't want a good superhero movie, but you just want something that's sort of fun. Oh, this is what was going to say is that I did not mind watching the movie. I was entertained for large parts of it, but there was one point where it was action sequence after action sequence, and I was like, is this going anywhere? And then I asked myself like I was like, is this going anywhere? Is there going to be like a third act climax or a penultimate like moment or whatever? Because it kind of felt like it just was unveiling sequence after sequence or plot point after plot point. I was like, I thought this was going to build up to something.
Yeah.
That's what I kept on wondering. And then I thought, am I content to stay here endlessly watching this movie? And I was like, you know what? I actually have a pretty high tolerance for this movie. I could actually watch it. I could watch Aaron Taylor Johnson being Kraven. I cannot watch Ariana DeBose being Calypso. But I could watch the Rhino. I could watch like these things going on. Kraven as starred this actor, Fred Heckinger, as the younger brother of Kraven, as the younger brother of Dimitri.
Hessinger, I think it is.
Heckinger?
Hessinger.
Hessinger?
Something. I don't know.
Okay. So this actor we just saw last night in another movie.
Yeah.
So we're here with Eric, my in-laws, Eric's grandparents. They came to visit for a few days. And last night we decided to watch the movie Thelma, which stars June Squibb. And it's a movie about an elderly woman who gets scammed, and she goes on a mission to recover her money that she got scammed out of. And her grandson, her very sweet grandson character, is played by the same actor, Fred Heckinger.
Yeah.
Heckinger. So what's really interesting to me now, because I've actually been thinking about both performances fairly closely, and then Eric also tells me that he played one of the evil brothers, one of the evil emperor brothers in Gladiator 2.
Yeah.
So both of his characters in Thelma and in Craven, they were both very sweet natured. They were, it's implied that they are actually, all the characters around them who are toxic males call them cowards, call them wimps. Like in Thelma, it's implied that his girlfriend broke up with him because he's kind of a loser and he can't decide to do anything. He has no initiative, and his parents are always like all over him. But in general, I thought that they were very effective performances, both of them, um, because he's really good at conveying some essential sweetness, and then which can at the turn of at the drop of a hat, his sweetness can become something really embarrassing and cringy and pitiful. So in both movies, oddly enough, and I loved his character in Thelma, the relationship between him and his grandmother, Thelma, who's played by Squibb, is one of the sweetest relationships I've ever seen portrayed on screen between a grandson and a grandmother. He's genuinely concerned about her well-being. He helps her. What's crazy to me is he helps her out with all of her technology questions without getting ever exasperated or impatient with her, which to me is probably the most unrealistic part of the movie.
Yeah.
And so he's endlessly patient, and yet there are moments where he's like so embarrassing and so cringe, like you just kind of cringe. And then in Craven, when he's playing the weak younger brother of Sergei, who's eventually becomes Craven, the contrast, he stays very sweet, very open, and then something terrible happens to him, and then he takes a turn. So, but I think that this actor, Fred Heckinger, is really good at walking that fine line between I'm essentially a really great character, but I can find the darker corners of my character like that. Like I can turn on a dime like that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you think, oh my God, he's pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, huge props to him
Yeah.
for being in three movies this
I
year.
know.
Crazy, because I immediately was like, I know that guy when he was in Thelma,
Yeah.
but I didn't recognize him at all. He looked completely different, and I think that's a testament to his ability as
Yes.
an actor. I definitely think he was most utilized in Thelma, though.
Yeah, 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 yeah. He was
Like
better
you
utilized in
take
them.
these two giant blockbusters, which is a huge accomplishment
Gladiator
on
2.
his
Yeah.
part.
And Kraven.
But he's the best in this like kind of
Indie little film.
indie
Yeah.
little
Thelma.
film.
Yeah.
And what's really cool about that element of recognizing him in Thelma was that all of the actors were people I just barely knew,
Recognized. Yes.
and that is so funny because it fits the theme of when she was asking, "Oh, don't I know you from somewhere?"
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah,
just
yeah.
like nobody knew her.
Yes. Yeah. There was the one year where the actor, I think his name is Michael Stuttgart. I think that's his name, Michael Stuttgart.
Yeah,
He was, again, he showed up in three incredibly different movies and
yeah,
he had very memorable supporting roles in all of them.
yeah.
So he was in Call Me by Your Name. He played the dad. He played a famous editor of the New York Times, I think it was, in The Post.
Hmm.
And then he played the scientist in The Shape of Water.
Yeah,
And this was all in the span of 12 months. So like after the second time, I was like, huh, isn't it that guy? And so there's been tons and tons written about great, great character actors,
hmm.
how over time you see them appear in very, very different parts, like
Yeah,
very, very different parts. And you think to yourself, oh, that guy, I kind of know who he is. And then
hmm.
after a while, you're thinking, oh no, he was actually a really critical piece of that film, you
Yeah,
know? And so then they start to build up like this whole career arc of great performances where they were always a supporting player, never the main character,
yeah,
but still they made it memorable each and every time, you know? And so I think that Fred What's His Face is well on his way to becoming one of the great character actors, you know?
yeah.
Like I think that how can I put it? I think that he plays his into his persona and his physical presence, which is quite small and
Yeah,
wimpy. He's got like a big head and a little body.
yeah,
And but I think that he's gonna if he could continue to dine out on this.
yeah,
I also think it's funny that like a nebbishy little guy like him is gonna find success
yeah,
across all of these different kinds of films,
yeah,
like a Ghost Gladiator 2
yeah.
and Craven and Thelma.
It's now making me think about just the kind of the art of casting.
Yes,
And
that's right.
that it made me think like, wow, that it was really brilliant casting for Thelma to cast all those people who you sort of vaguely knew
New,
or
yes, Parker
recognized, but
Posey.
not
Right,
exactly. Like even June Squibb, I didn't recognize at all,
right.
but her voice was familiar because she's a voice actor in a lot of
Yes.
Disney films and stuff. So that's really cool. People who know how to do that that's a really good
It's
skill.
amazing.
I
It
mean,
makes you appreciate the sort of tradesman aspect of acting.
yeah,
That there are people who are super talented and will
yeah,
just keep on playing a range of parts, and they won't ever be mega stars, but
yeah.
they'll hold down a movie in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, you know?
Like there was a guy who acted in so many Chapman films at school, and he just had the most ridiculous kind of delivery and just like way of screen presence. He just seemed like some, older dad,
Yeah,
kind of guy.
yeah,
So and there were people who but since he was so available, I think he was casting like a lot of different things. But people who casted him in serious roles, I don't think they knew what they were
no,
doing at
I know,
all
I know.
because he killed it in the goofy like,
Yes,
oh, I don't know what I'm doing here kind of
yeah,
roles. It makes me rethink, sometimes the blame can fall on the actor, which is
yes,
why I'm hesitant when you talk about Ariana
yeah,
DeBose. Like I don't know how much of that is really her fault.
yeah. I don't know
So
either, but she was really bad.
yeah, but it's a lot of times it's a collective effort to make somebody's role look like
That's right.
shit, and
Yeah,
they kind of have to take the face of
that's
that,
right.
which sucks. But
So, before we go much further, I just want to say also I loved Thelma. I
yeah,
loved the movie Thelma,
it was
and
good.
and I just thought it was it was intensely personal because it touched on all these issues that I've gone through in such detail with my parents about how do you respect a person who's aging and getting older and wants to be independent and wants to continue to be a part of life, but is clearly losing functionality and losing the ability to be a part, to live on their own and to live independently. And so it dealt with those questions in such a compassionate
Yeah.
way. And what I love about it is that it didn't make the mistake of making the elderly people who are sort of feeling helpless and conflicted about what their life choices are at the end of their lives, but it doesn't make them overly saintly, like it doesn't sort of argue that, oh, we should treat all elderly people with reverence and do whatever they want. It makes them into difficult, complicated, very real human beings,
Yeah.
so Thelma's character is really stubborn and she puts her family through so much worry and so much upset because she's so fiercely independent and determined to do things on her own. And also, she's in denial. Like, she
Yeah.
doesn't want to admit that she's losing functionality. And oh my God, I've gone through this with my parents. I've seen this happen with so many, um, you know, parents of my friends. And I don't think that there's any easy answers. And I don't think that the movie actually says that there's any easy answers. There's no easy resolution.
Yeah.
And everything that's difficult for an older person to do, like get up from the floor or navigate through a crowded space, everything that's difficult is shown with such compassion, but it also lends itself to, how can I say this, the staging of these scenes where you see them struggle is also done with so much tenderness and so much humor too.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of references to how her scene walking through a crowded shop is shot like a Mission Impossible sequence because it's a subplot.
Yeah.
She's inspired by Tom Cruise's character in Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
And so there's a scene about how they compare this, her picking her way through a crowded shop is similar to Tom Cruise trying to break into a top secret facility, like a super high security
Yes.
facility. And it's invested with the same type of, so there's a humor to that comparison, but there's also a reality to it.
Yeah.
There's absolutely, it makes the struggles of elderly people feel very real. And I honestly, as a society, we tend to succumb to this idea that we should just shut our elderly people away and not have to think about them at all. And I feel like this movie is making an argument that you should think about them. They should be a part of our lives. They should not be taken advantage of. Certainly shouldn't be preyed upon just because they're vulnerable. But it just shows how pushed aside they are and how they're struggling to hold on to the last tether of life,
Yeah.
And so and then I thought that June Squibbs, I'm sad that she's not in the conversation for Best Actress. There was like a time when they were talking about whether or not they'd do an Oscar campaign,
Yeah.
but I don't think the movie was seen by enough people. It's also like a pretty well-known secret that the Academy members don't watch the movies that they're sent. They don't have time. So they get sent all the screeners for all the categories and they don't actually watch them. They vote based on who they like or what buzz they heard, which is why the Oscar campaign even became a thing
Yeah.
because they're voting more for the PR and publicity.
Mm.
But I'm sad that this movie didn't find more of an audience. I'm sad that June Squibb is not in the Best Actress consideration because I actually think that her performance was remarkable.
Yeah.
So, what'd you think?
I mean, yeah, for everything you just said, I think that it was just a really great and surprising experience. I mean, I didn't hear anything about it, and I didn't have any expectations about it. But I thought it was just a really solid movie. The kind of the most, or the scene that was I was remembering when you were talking about just kind of what message it puts forward, and how, elderly people are not, or we should be making a point not to push them aside and
Right.
to
They're
be
not
thinking about them.
seen, in other words.
Yeah, I think the best scene that showed that to me was when they went to their friend's house to get the gun.
Yes.
I forgot her name though. The It
Uh,
was Doll.
Mona.
Mona, yes. Um,
Mona.
that started off as a really funny scene. She's stealing like, why does she have, first of all, why does she have a gun? Second of all, she has to get up on the bed and it's like a whole mission to like get to the top of the thing and grab
See
the
where she
gun.
dropped the
And
gun.
and at the bottom of the stairs, Ben, right, is talking about,
Fruit.
berries and
All
fruit.
the fruit
Oh,
that's here.
we got cantaloupes and
Honeydew
watermelons,
and grape.
honeydew, and he's just listing every, and
That
Momo's just like,
was the
"Mm."
greatest scene ever. It
Yeah.
was the
And
greatest scene ever.
but it had a really unexpected ending because I think, any maybe another movie would have kind of just moved on and like, oh, that was fun. Like we stole a gun, and everybody enjoyed that and it was really funny. But it ended very quietly.
Yes.
They just looked they treated leaving her like it actually mattered.
Yes.
And the
And then he
music,
said afterwards, she shouldn't be living like
yeah,
that.
she
Yeah.
shouldn't, and that was, I feel like that kind of came after that whole moment because
Yeah. No, it did.
at first I was a little um caught off guard because the tone suddenly shifted. It was so slow and like the piano,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
music was very somber. But then he just said that he's just said she shouldn't be living like that,
I
and then
know.
it kind of just released that whole tension. So that I wish that more movies would kind of treat these scenes like exactly like that.
Yes.
It's not just to like jingle in front of your face or
Yes.
to like, you know,
That's such a
or to just just be a vehicle for the next thing.
yes.
Scenes are little movies in and of themselves, so why don't we treat them and treating every scene like that is what makes it come together for this whole experience
Yes.
and
Eric,
delivers
that
that
was
message.
so brilliant.
You're welcome.
That was so good.
Okay. No, but that only came. I only just okay. Thank you. That's great. But that only came about just because you were explaining the whole message of the movie.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful little, and it was funny, and it was beautifully acted, and it wasn't slow.
Yeah.
And everybody gave a great performance, including, by the way, the reaction shot when she shows up for his musical and shows there's this one director who keeps on trying to get this
Oh,
woman
yeah,
to play to learn her lines, and this old lady who's playing Annie in the
yeah,
Broadway musical Annie,
yeah.
she keeps on forgetting her line, I think, which is just like one word or whatever. And
That's
so, and
yeah,
so they cut to the volunteer director
yeah,
who's trying to direct this play, and you just see her going, "Oh my God."
yeah. That's
So
also another great element was that, that director lady only had that one
what's
scene
the I
before, and
know
then she came back. It was like a really funny joke for just one shot. So giving that kind of love and care to everybody that's a part of
everybody,
the
and
movie.
even the assisted living attendants
Yes,
who
the attendants,
you got
they're
that
so
it
funny.
was so funny.
Uh,
Everybody, this is a little gem of a movie. It is a really little gem of this movie. For,
yeah,
serious, if for the 10 people who watch this podcast or that listen to this podcast,
yeah,
you've got to watch Thelma because it's really well done. And not only that, but it's actually a really beautifully shot movie too.
yeah,
I actually thought that it was so visual, so well done. And it was just really interesting to me how like they kept on pulling back to these intimate character sequences. By the way, it's the opposite of Kraven, that every time there's two people on in front of you in Kraven, I was like, oh shit, they're gonna say some awful dialogue and they're
yeah,
gonna do it in the most wooden, ridiculous way possible.
yeah,
But every time there is a scene between two people in Thelma, which is obviously a very different kind of movie, but still, every time there's a scene with two people or more than two people, you got such a strong sense of who the people are.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like you got a sense of how they related to one another and what their emotions were and what their characters were. Like it was unbelievably character driven and the characters were beautifully developed.
yeah,
And so you would watch like Thelma's expressions, you know. I actually when she pulled her little trick, you know, and pretended that she was forgot who she was or where she was, I was sitting there going, wait a second, is she really having amnesia? Like, did she really just have a moment or an episode? And then when she just like pulled it out, I was like, holy crap.
yeah,
So June Squibb was so brilliant. I love this movie, and I'm so glad that we actually saw it. So,
yeah.
and it was just really funny for that actor being in both Craven and in this one.
Yeah. Also, that movie showed a great sense of place in terms of where it's coming in
Yes.
terms of like how it relates or how technology is implemented
Yeah.
and then how the character's relationship to that is also displayed. Like I get really annoyed when movies use social media just as like, oh, this is what social
Yeah,
media
yeah,
is.
yeah,
So you
yeah.
comment and then you post and all of a sudden everybody knows about this
Yeah,
thing. Like
yeah.
that's not nobody functions like that, but instead it's for June Squibb when she posts some random picture of a gas
Yeah, yeah.
station. It's like and her parents are like, oh my, I mean, her her kids are like, "Oh my God, where the fuck is she?"
I still am laughing when he said, I think she posted. I
Yeah.
think it was by, I think
It was, oh yeah, by accident, but now we know where she is.
also the thing about the X on the ad,
Yeah, yeah,
it just doesn't matter what color it
yeah.
is, just click the X.
It doesn't give off like CEO executives that like signed off on this like
That's
script, like
right.
this is gonna promote this app,
Yeah,
that we're invested in. Like
that's right.
it's like this is how people actually use the
Yeah, 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 yeah,
technology,
yeah.
so
Yeah, it's just a great little movie.
yeah.
So third movie I just want to end quickly with, and we don't have to spend time talking about the movie because there's just obviously too much history, but I want to talk genuinely. So on Christmas Eve, we were trying to decide what movie to see, and the kids came up with, actually agreed on The Sound of Music, to watch The Sound of Music together. And I was really shocked by this. So, and I was really, really shocked. So I just want to talk for a moment about how this made me feel. I just want to say how this made me feel.
Go ahead.
So, number one, The Sound of Music is one of my very favorite movies ever. I totally cop to the fact that it's cheesy and the Von Trapp children are very weird, like they're very odd,
Yeah.
and there are many, many weird, campy elements to that movie. But I was shown that movie as a kid by my parents who went to see it in the theater. They loved Julie Andrews. My mom especially loved Julie Andrews, and that movie made me fall in love with Julie Andrews, especially her singing voice, which I thought was just perfect. Years later, I heard that Julie Andrews did not get the part of My Fair Lady. She did not get the part of Eliza Doolittle, which she played on Broadway, because they didn't think that she was pretty enough. So they picked Audrey Hepburn, who got she got a stand-in singer. They dubbed it with
Ugh.
somebody else's voice. But I think that Julie Andrews is one of the most beautiful singers, right up there with Judy Garland, because there's just something that about her voice that just grabs me. And I think that it reminds me of a criticism that I frequently hear about Ariana Grande. People say that Ariana Grande has this amazing vocal range, but they can never understand what she's singing
Yeah.
because
I couldn't.
she's terrible at enunciating her lyrics. But
Yeah.
she's very vocally agile, but she can't actually you can't actually understand her words, you
Oh, my
know?
friends are gonna hate this.
So, but Julie Andrews, when she sings, every single like letter, every single word is perfectly rounded, very, very crisp. So I loved this movie. And then I said to the kids when we went to see the Christmas markets in Austria in 2019, I said, I think you should watch it because we were going to go on the Sound of Music tour on Christmas Day when we were in Salzburg. And so the kids watched it. And so here's where I pause and say, Eric, what did you think of the movie when we saw it in 2019?
Oh, you're asking me. Sorry.
Yes,
Yes. When I saw it in 20, I mean, I thought the same of it I do now. Did you think I didn't like it as
I
much?
didn't think you liked it.
What?
I didn't think you liked it.
Okay, I must not have been good at expressing my thoughts. I mean, I loved it when I saw it the first time.
Oh, I did not think so.
Well,
I didn't think that you or Annie were into it at all.
I think well, we knew it was just long, really long movie. And
It is really long.
to this day, I joke about how long the song Do
Do
Re
Re
Mi
Mi.
goes on for. Although actually, it only just went on a little longer than I wanted to this time. But I mean, I liked it. I liked the story was really great, and then it obviously aided to our whole experience in Austria. That was like really beautiful. I think probably we liked it more this time because we were rewatching it and we remembered
Yeah,
the songs, and because it is so well composed and so well done that it feels so familiar,
yeah,
and that aids to the familiarity of the story,
yeah,
and our experience of it too with Austria. But I
yeah,
mean, it was yeah, when I watched it the first time, I had less patience. I just was not, and I was also in I was just I mean, I still am, but I was just coming up in my understanding of film and what I liked. So I think back then I was way more critical, and way more decidedly thinking that the movies had to be a certain way,
yes,
instead of accepting movies sometimes for what they are.
yeah.
But I still didn't. I still kind of felt the same, the
Oh,
second time
interesting,
around. So,
interesting. So this time around, when we watched it on Christmas Eve, and the four of us, Dave, Annie, and Eric, and me, and we watched it from start to finish And what was really interesting to me also was that everybody was engaged from start to finish, including Dad. Like he was just he said to me afterwards, I don't remember ever feeling that invested in the movie. He goes, I think I always watched it more ironically, and I also sort of at a distance because you were so into the movie, you know. But this time around, he was super into it. And the funniest moment when he was starting to show how into it he was is when we all, for some reason, just completely like super got into the movie right around my favorite things. And when she's singing my favorite things, which is a fairly early song in the movie, and then all of a sudden when she starts listing all of her favorite things in the song, then all of a sudden Dad says steak tacos. Which is, and then Eric contributed pomegranate seeds. So we just all started listing our favorite things, which is
Yeah.
great. But anyway, I just have to say that as many times as I've seen this movie, which is many, many times indeed, it is extra, extra special when your family members jump on board with you on something that you've been crazy about for such a long time. You know,
Hmm.
that's it's not even that you're crazy about it, because I don't it's not like I think about the Sound of Music all the time. It's just that it stirs up such deep nostalgia and
Yeah.
affection. And Julie Andrews is forever in my heart as Maria. And that tour that we took in Salzburg, which is called the Original Sound of Music Tour, it's original because it's the same tour company that actually scouted out the movie locations
Yeah.
for the movie, and it takes you to many of those movies,
I
those
didn't
same
know that.
locations.
I didn't realize that.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's why it's called the Original Sound of Music Tour.
Yeah.
And so you get to see the church where Maria got married. You get to see the gazebo where the dance took place. You get to look across at the big castle chateau type place, where which provided the exterior shots for Captain Von Trapp's mansion. And then you get to see all the beautiful lakes. You know, it was really crappy weather the day that we went, and yet it was still iconic to see the mountainside
Yeah.
and the lakes that she was like sort of tripping all over the place. And
Yeah.
so yeah. So it was a great trip that we took. That was a really memorable trip. It was just before COVID hit, you know, so when we were coming back, I remember looking up at the news in the airport and sort of they were starting saying, "Oh, there's these report confirmed cases of this highly contagious virus," and I was like, "Oh, that doesn't sound good."
Yeah.
But because other pandemics had not become pandemics, I remember thinking, "Oh, that's not. It can't be that big a deal. It's not gonna spread." So
Yeah.
that was a really memorable trip we took together as a family, and that is one of my all-time dear movies.
A
So
piece about nostalgia that you just mentioned
yeah,
is, I mean, I think that's definitely what aids to um, now, my increasing love for this movie. I mean, partially the fact that we went there and we saw the places, but also the way that the movie itself captures the place and the
yes,
time that it was filmed.
yeah, and you love Salzburg.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was so
Yeah,
pretty, and if
he did not like Vienna.
I did not like Vienna that much, it was pretty lame. But just the
Such
film, it's
great European cities, and Eric thought it was
yeah,
pretty lame.
the film itself included so many shots of the city, and
Yeah.
it starts with all those helicopter shots of the mountains that
Yes.
when they used helicopters
Yes.
and not drones, so it really feels like we were there and we were looking down at this whole place. And same for the intermission and also parts of the story where she would take them around the city because it's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
So as time goes on, those captures become more important and more like they feel more important and whereas when I saw it the first time it was kind of new to me, so
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
wasn't familiar.
Yeah.
And that's kind of despite how I don't really like Equalizer 3 that much. He's in that town in Italy.
Yeah.
Was it? Do you know what city it was?
It's near Positano, I'm sure. It's on the Amalfi Coast,
Right.
I'm sure.
But that city now I feel I'm remembering and like I
Yeah.
kind of want to go there,
Yeah.
I think when a movie creates again a sense of place is
Yeah.
it's really
It's right around that area where Sorrento is and Positano in
hmm.
Italy, and you also loved it. You loved it. Like you
Oh,
like
yeah, I don't remember, but
Yeah.
yeah.
We were on a cruise where we went to this, and Eric wanted to get off he was only like he had just turned 5 years old, and he was really committed. He wanted to stay at the kids club on the ship, except when he looked out the window and saw that the scenery was gorgeous. So for Santorini, he wanted to get off the boat, and then Sorrento, you definitely wanted to get off the boat because the Amalfi Coast is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was a really unexpected treat. It might have been one of my very favorite Christmas memories from this time around. We had a really nice Christmas, just the four of us, plus our dog. So I want to say, in terms of a trio of Christmas movies, Kraven, Thelma, and The Sound of Music. It was a pretty good run. The family did, not when Eric wasn't here, but the family did try to watch Dream Scenario with Nicolas Cage, and I did not like that movie at all. I stopped watching it. And as I was telling Eric, it's because the characters were deeply unpleasant and became only more so. And I cannot handle movies or TV shows with deeply unpleasant characters that only become more so as the plot develops. But overall, I love the way that movies both reinforce your best memories and then also just give you something to hope for. And then at the very base level, like Craven, are just really occasionally entertaining.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it's funny, the lack of Christmas that was in all of these movies. I
Yes.
actually misremembered. I thought that Sound of Music ended in Christmas, but
I
it
know
did.
he kept on saying
I
that.
just kept saying that. I was like, oh, it's Christmas when they want to leave. And
I know
then
there
it
is no
literally didn't
Christmas.
crop up at all. So, um,
There's nothing.
yeah,
Yes. But anyway, so this wraps up 2024 in terms of podcasting. And we look forward to 2025 for the listeners who are still with us. We completely appreciate you. Happy New Year. And
Happy New
Eric,
Year.
I love you so much. I'm so glad we got to
Love
do
you
this one
too.
in person. Oh,
2 years. Wait, is it? It's been
no, it's August, August
a year.
2023.
Yeah. Well, it's been a
A
great year.
year and
I
a
want
half.
many more years of this.
Yeah.
And maybe I was just thinking it would be more work, which I would hate, but maybe we should start a TikTok and then we'll actually get some listeners. Because that's kind of, but I don't know. We'll see. But
Okay.
yeah,
All
love you
right.
so
Happy New
much.
Year. Love
Happy New
you.
Year.
Bye.
Bye. Merry Kravemus.
Merry Kraven.